Now, there's a bill going through the UK Parliament that will recognise in law for the first time that animals have feelings: pain, pleasure, fear, maybe affection, trust, betrayal. This could lead to a broader definition of animal cruelty, covering a wide range of species, including invertebrates, for instance, and an increase in the penalties for it. There are, of course, those who worry about the consequences for farming, fishing, and UK country sports. But there are deeper arguments about whether animals can have rights when they don't have obligations, and though this is sometimes disputed, cannot distinguish between good and bad. The root issue is whether they inhabit the same moral universe as humans, or are humans, ethically speaking, unique? Well, for more on this, let's cross to London and speak to Margarita Sachkova, who is a manager at the animal rights organisation People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Do you think a bill such as this one going through the British Parliament at the moment is necessary? Are you also a sort of guilty flesh eater like I am?
Good afternoon, Charles, and thank you so much for inviting me. Well, this bill is definitely a step forward, and it has its significance. And it just reflects what we've been knowing for a really long time, that animals, as you rightfully said, are sentient beings. They feel emotions, they feel pain, they feel fear, just in a similar way as humans do. And I think this bill will make legislators and decision makers to take into account particular needs of animals. But even though it's a very important legal issue, I would like to stress how important this issue is from a moral standpoint. Just think of it. If society now agrees that animals are sentient beings, just like us, humans, then also society needs to accept that it's wrong to kill them for a meal or for a pair of shoes. And answering your questions, no, I'm not eating animals for my meals. There are so many plant-based vegan options available that have the same taste and no cruelty involved. So there is absolutely no need for us to keep eating animals.
Well, that's interesting. If you're not a flesh eater, do you think that our growing concern, human growing concern about animal welfare and the increase in the number of vegetarians and vegans, I'm assuming you're one of those, represents human progress and also a welcome questioning of the destructive idea that the natural world is simply here for us to exploit it at will?
Oh, well, definitely. And I feel that now when we know better, we really need to do better. And there is strong scientific evidence that animals feel pain, that animals feel fear. And take, for example, fish. Now, all scientists agree that fish can feel pain. And we're still killing about 3 million fish per year. And even fishing industries, even killing dolphins and turtles. And if you have Netflix, you can just watch Seaspiracy and just to see the dangerous effects of fishing. And the only solution to protect our oceans is to stop eating fish. And again, it's absolutely unnecessary to keep eating fish or any other animals. Other alternatives, and vegan meats and vegan fish is so widely available, and it's healthy, it's better for environment, and again, it doesn't harm any other living being.
Well, of course, you could take that argument in many different directions. You could widen it to include even plants. I mean, and people will then wonder, what do we eat to survive? But let's use common sense, Margarita, and agree that some animals have feelings, particularly the domesticated ones. So this bill in the UK Parliament could be said to be a step in the right direction. But what do you see as the end point? I mean, you've talked about a lot of things, fishing, the fact that we don't really need them to survive and all that sort of thing. What do you see as the end point? Do you see us stopping hunting, fishing, eating meat? What's the ultimate objective?
Well, it's interesting, Charles, that all the industries you've just mentioned, hunting and fishing and meat industry, these all are legal industry. And it just means that if something is legal, it doesn't really mean that it's right. And just think of it. We don't have to wait for legislation to catch up. You, me, everyone watching us, we can just take our personal responsibility and refuse to support any industry that exploits and kills animals. And take, for example, UK, 1 billion of chickens, pigs, and cows, 1 billion of sentient beings who feel pain and fear are killed every year in the meat industry. And it's in our power to stop refusing the slaughter of these animals. And when I think about cows, I don't know if you know this fact or not, but cows actually can make friends. And if their friend dies, they would grieve in the same way as humans do. And they can even cry, they can even shed tears. And when you think of it, how can you justify killing them for a hamburger?
Yes, I mean, the more you speak about it, the more it makes a lot of sense. And in a sense, perhaps, as humans, we would all be more compassionate and be better citizens of Earth if we focus more on stewardship rather than dominion when we think about our place on this planet and the natural world.
Yes, I totally agree that there is like humans are not like, if you think of it of hierarchy, we are really linked to other animals. We are not on top of them. We are all sharing same planet. We are all sharing same ability to feel pain, to feel fear, and there is this concept called speciesism, which is human supremacy over other species. And one example of it is having a dog at home and really, surrounding your dog with love, but at the same time eating a hamburger from a cow who was slaughtered. So it's really speciesist to love one species, but keep exploiting the other. And again, when there is absolutely no need for that, when there are clothes made of all the modern materials, all the fantastic vegan leathers, when there are all these brilliant, beautiful plant-based foods, we can't really justify exploiting animals.
Well, you mentioned dogs there. Of course, if you have a dog or you've ever lived with one, you'll discover that they think they have rights, for instance, to sleep on your bed, and they'd be prepared to fight for that right. But isn't the reality, though, Margarita, that you are in charge, and without human beings, animals wouldn't have any conception about whether they have rights or not in nature, would they?
Well, it's an interesting question. And speaking about dog, and I live with a dog, it's definitely the case that sometimes she would want to sleep on my bed. But I think, like rights and obligations, it's not, animal rights are not the same as human rights. But I think you would agree with me that every living being has a right to live their life free from harm, free from being tortured, free from being killed. And we know it's scientifically proven that animals value their lives as much as we do. They don't want to die. In the same way we don't want to end up on someone's dinner plate. They don't want it either. And if you've ever seen footage, you can go to PETA.org.uk to see some footage of animals scared before they're slaughtered. They don't want to go there. And I think many people would agree with me that they have right to be left in peace. They have right not to be there for humans to exploit them, and they have right just to be who they are.
But I mean, Margarita, do you make a distinction between pets and pests, for instance? I mean, should we be as keen to safeguard the rat or even lesser species from any other higher animals?
Well, first of all, I prefer not to use words pets or pests because it's like a human-made concept. And animals who share houses with us, for me, my dog is my friend. She's my flatmate. It's not really a pet. I don't own her. She is an individual with her personality. And pests in the same way, like rats, you mentioned them. They're remarkable animals. They're really, really clever. They make really strong social bonds, and they really care about their young. So I wouldn't really consider them inferior animals. They're absolutely remarkable, and they have right to live on this planet, and they have right to be left in peace, of course.
But they also spread a lot of disease and cause a lot of harm to the grains and things that human beings use to survive. But let me ask you this. What about predators? I mean, when a predator such as a lion hunts a zebra or a deer, does the zebra or the deer have a right not to be eaten?
That's a really curious comparison. And I feel like when people are comparing them with lions, when they try to justify eating other animals' flesh, they forget that lions don't go to shops to buy the piece of flesh that is packed with antibiotics and that comes from an animal who was who was grown artificially, who was genetically modified, who was living in a cramped conditions, who was brutally slaughtered. Lions don't do that. They're doing that to survive. And humans don't really need to survive. And you mentioned diseases. There are so many diseases linked to eating meat, from cancer to blood diseases. And one of the most recent examples, the global pandemic, COVID, which originated in one of the live animal markets in China. And the more we exploit animals, the more we are opening this Pandora box of potential diseases like mad cow disease, avian flu. They all are consequences of humans exploiting animals. So it's a win-win situation. When we stop exploiting them, we'll become healthier and happy individuals.
Well, I have to say you make a lot of sense, but I've also spoken to people on the other side of the discussion, and they seem to make a lot of sense. The jury is out at the moment, but Margarita Sachkova, manager at the animal rights organization People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, thank you very much indeed for joining us there from London.